November the 11th. I want to welcome everybody back. Just greeted my students. I did upload the video from last Wednesday in the lab, in the classroom session that we had. So in case you missed that one, you should have access to it now. And that one, we cover the actual assignment that's due. I think it's due this week, by the end of this week, for the Facebook ad assignment. So make sure you watch that video if you want to follow the steps. Okay, I take it right from the beginning right to the end on how to build the ad. All right. So today we'll continue with some other additional important topics. So make sure you watch these videos and ask questions. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, I think this is already done. Save these videos sometimes take a little while to process and upload and do all that kind of little miscellaneous things. So I try to do my best to upload them right after, but it's out of my hands. I gotta wait till the thing to process. YouTube has a screening process. They just don't let you upload any video you like. They gotta go through all the different filters and stuff. So I gotta wait, and then I have to go back maybe 2, 3 times until finally the video is posted. So it takes a little bit of work to get these videos up and running, but like I said, I don't mind doing it for my students, and it's very helpful from what I hear, the feedback. So we'll keep it up and going. All right, so we have the Photoshop module. We're continuing with that one. Just to quickly follow up on that assignment, the social media assignment is due this week. I made it on the 15th, so you have till the end of the week to complete it. In case you have any questions on Wednesday, I can help you, or you can just finish it in the lab session that we have this week on Wednesday. We have another assignment coming up. This one's going to be called a motion design for web. I have to tweak the date because it's outdated from the last semester. So that's going to do possibly near the end of the semester, because you're going to learn motion design and stuff in the actual module. And the last project that you have in this class, like the main project, it's going to be the web page design. So for this one, we're going to start this morning on how to basically start a web page template prototype, all in Photoshop. And I'll show you some real professional template examples that people purchase online or you build yourself, on how Photoshop is quite the popular tool for this kind of prototyping. Followed up, of course, by the other prototype software, some of that you're learning this semester, like the Figmas and the XDs, they follow through. But a lot of the design that takes place, you can still utilize the Adobe software like Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, so we're going to dive into that a little later. And before that, I'm going to ask you to go to this module over here, which is the class 10, because this is class 10. Week 11, class 10. So the Photoshop website module. Like I said, we did finish the class 9 last week, and Wednesday we wrapped up the MacBook Pro resources and the image reconstruction exercise. So now we're on to this one here. I'm going to make this a folder accessible to you. This is a good exercise folder. We're going to probably start with that this morning just to get you geared up and acquainted with some of the methods in Photoshop. And then we'll dive into the actual web page design. And this is some of the image sources we're going to use for the web page builds. This is a template I'm going to show you from the website. There's another mock-up over here we'll get into, and there's a desktop mobile, just some files for us to resource from, okay? This will cover us for the next 2 classes. Now, next Monday, I might not be here doing this session live. I'm going to post an announcement because I'll be traveling, and I'm not going to have access to the internet until later in the day. So it's going to be in the morning time, which means I'll probably pre-record the lesson session or I'm just going to do a makeup class on the Wednesday when I do have the class with you. And that's going to be virtual. So basically, Monday's class will be a virtual class on Wednesday. Same time, same place. We can start at 9 o'clock on the Wednesday next week. I'll remind you again this upcoming Wednesday for what's going to happen next week. Okay. So no worries. You just have to, take the Monday off and do some other work or catch up with some other assignments, right? And then we have class 12, 13, and 14, and that's pretty much wrapping up the semester. All right. So let's go ahead and start with this folder here. So layers.zip, if you want to click on that folder and download the actual file right here on the desktop, go ahead. For some reason, I got Firefox installed here. All right. And I'm going to open this folder and you will see some other, when you extract the zip file, you have a folder and there'll be additional folders inside. You have lots of folders. I'm not going to cover all of these. They're just like resource files for students. You can use them to, because they all have handouts and stuff. I'm only going to cover the important things. This homework folder, for example, is a good practice. If you just open it up, you're going to see a bunch of animals in the wild kingdom, and you can just get acquainted with layers, naming layers, doing some object orienting and things like that. This is the file for it. I'm just going to open Photoshop quickly. Right, so you have here all these lovely animals with all the layers on the side, and they're all named adequately. So this one is the polar bear. You call it polar bear if you haven't already. This one's called the black bear. Then there's the horse, the giraffes, and you can hit Command or Control T and resize them. Just have some fun with getting acquainted with using layers in Photoshop. You can then hide a lot of these layers with the visibles, and you can show the layers and do lots of interesting things with this. Just a fun exercise out there for the students to practice Photoshop. Nothing that we're going to spend or waste any time this morning on, okay? So I'm just going to close it down. And then we have the preference tour. This is a very simple preference tour. This is an older version of Photoshop, so not that the preferences have changed, but just the layout and the process may be different in an older operating system. I don't recommend you messing the preferences unless you really, really have to, because every time you do an update, the preferences kind of reset and you have to kind of go through it again and again. So I will leave them alone. The preferences are set up quite well, except the interface. I like to use the classical interface as we usually switch it up when we do these things. Just quickly check something here. All right, we're good. This other folder here is called layers. This is an advanced layer composite exercise. We probably will do this one just to show you some advanced Photoshop techniques. This is the blend modes. We're definitely going to cover that one today, and we're going to do some of the effects also. So these are the folders we're going to cover mainly, okay? These other ones are a little miscellaneous folders here, okay, like layer masks and stuff. That's also maybe a good one. Content aware scaling, smart objects, and resize. Okay, so maybe what I'll do this week, I'm going to cover a good portion of these folders here just to kind of get you on the right level with learning the software. Okay, so let's start with the blend modes. This one here. So I'm going to just kind of label it blue so we can kind of see where we're at right here. So if you open up this folder, we're going to see a couple of files to work with. A lot of these folders, as I mentioned earlier, have like a step-by-step handout, and you can see what the layer blend modes basically are. So the blending mode specified in the options bar controls how pixels in the image are affected by painting or editing tool. It's helpful to think in terms of the following colors when visualizing a blend mode effect. So there's three things. There's the base color, which is the original color of the image. There's the blend color, which is the color being applied with the painting or the editing tool. The result color is the color resulting from the blend. That's how you can basically explain how blends work. It's like putting an onion skin on top of another onion skin, and you get a different onion skin result. It's like a very thin layer on top of another thin layer. But the difference is the effects that multiply these colors and results in different ways that you have a, quite the creative outcome when you do these creative blends or blend modes. Okay, so the most common ones are multiply. So we're going to open up one of these images and show how multiply works for that specific reason. Screen is the opposite of multiply. So there's an example how screen works. And hardlight is more like a creative filter, which we're going to demonstrate how that works as well. So there's 3 different examples for us to choose from here. All right, so let's go ahead and open one of them. We'll start with this one called multiply PSD. It's a Photoshop file. So all you really have to do is open it, and it's kind of basically take you right into Photoshop. So make sure you do that. I think I dabbled with this one a bit because I put a Toblerone logo as opposed to the CD logo. So this is a very popular item because a lot of the websites, let's say like e-commerce websites, a lot of them sell products online. I don't have to convince you guys. You can see from Amazon to AliExpress or Alibaba, all those websites and stuff. Etsy, they sell lots of merchandise, t-shirts and gear. A lot of times these new products come and you have to put a brand on this thing. The quickest way to put a logo on these on these you know merchandising products, especially like hoodies, sometimes the quality of the logo may not be that good. Like see how the quality of this one here is not a good quality to start with. Mind you, I think this is already done, so I do apologize for this setup here. I'm just gonna set this back to normal. I should upload these files actually just to kind of keep it all together. But maybe you can learn from this way too. So this logo here wasn't like this. It used to look like this. It was set to normal, and these two were also set to normal. And the Toblerone logo was set to normal. This is how blend modes work. So the actual exercise file should have looked like this. So don't worry if you have it or don't have it. It's a learning exercise anyways. But if you have auto select layer on, and if you click on the Toblerone logo, it'll select that layer here. And this is how the blend mode is. So it's set to normal by default. If you do have darken or multiply, just to see the example, put it back to normal. When you get images online, I'm just going to delete it to show you what I'm talking about here. If you get images online and you, I don't know, let's go with Red Bull, okay, logo. So a lot of these images online, when you get them, a lot of them might have like the white background. This one looks like has a transparent background here. So this logo here, if I copy it, copy the image or save it, and then paste it in Photoshop, right? And I hit Command or Control T to resize it. I'm gonna do what's called a Red Bull, promotion for their hoodies. This is what's gonna happen most of the time. You're gonna get this white background. For you to get rid of the white background, you can use the magic wand. You can click on it. You can press delete, and then you can kind of chop it up that way. But it's still not going to look realistic. Plus, you have to do all this other extra work to delete all these things. So the quick solution for this, instead of getting rid of backgrounds, as I've showed you in the previous exercises, is to change the blend mode. And that's exactly what this exercise is all about. So sort of normal, to get rid of any white backgrounds on top of merchandising, whether it's hoodies, gears, mugs, cups, pens, all that stuff. What you want to do is you want to change it to multiply or darken. So this is the two that work really well. Okay, depending on the outcome you're looking for, I'll go with multiply for now. It's going to do exactly that. Not only is fast, but it's nice and translucent, and it gives you a good result in terms of the superimpositioning of the logo on top of the merchandise. I'm just going to go to the move tool here and select the other examples. Like these are the ones that were there from before. And And if you don't see this result, it's probably already set to, multiply. So just to see the example, change it back to normal. This is what it used to look like, and this is what we made it look like. You see, a lot faster, a lot better in terms of using this multiply effect blend mode. And the effect would be, of course, getting rid of the background. Very useful. This was what Photoshop is really known for, doing things really quickly sometimes on a production scale. If you're a web designer, you're in charge of a website, sometimes you got to do your own graphics. Quickest way to put logos on your merchandise is to use a multiply effect. So this is a really good one, guys. I hope you found it useful. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to close this one and don't save. And the other one is called screen. So we just did multiply. Multiply basically tells you like the steps that I'm showing you here. Multiply drops the white, basically. Multiply darkens, and stuff like that. Now the screen basically, what it does, it drops the black instead of the white. So it's the opposite effect. So screen effect is good for, like, let's say you have, I don't know, we did a Batman poster once with the alley and it was raining and we superimposed rain on top of the background. It came out nice because it got rid of the dark and kept the light colors through the dark. So it looked really cool. Let's open up this one here to show you the example. All you hear is, this is called a lens flare effect. So this was done by simply using the filter. There's a tutorial in here on how to do these effects. Like there's one called stars. You can follow these steps to do it. I'm not going to really waste time doing this, but it's there in case you want to know. Not that important. I'll teach you quickly how to do a lens flare. To do a lens flare like this, I'm just going to press Option Delete or just fill this with a black base color. Underneath that, there's something called stars. This was done exactly like that little thing I just showed you, the tutorial, where you can just put a little white speckles of dust. So it looks like you're looking into the night sky. Well, on top of this, you have what's called the black fill. On the black fill, we'll apply the filter called lens flare. And lens flare is an old filter. It was existent even when I was learning Photoshop back in the days. It's 20 years ago, but it's there. And what it does, it basically produces like the lens flare effect from the camera lens, like a reflection from the light. So if I apply it right now, I'm going to show you there's many types of lens flare. This is not in the handout, by the way. I'm just kind of giving extra knowledge here to know how to do a lens flare. There's a 50 to a 300 millimeter zoom, and you can control that. There's also the 35 millimeter prime, and you can change all these different lens flare attributes. There's the 105 millimeter, and there's the movie prime. Okay, so we'll do the 105 millimeter. So it looks like more like the sun effect. And we're gonna do this 109. Click OK. And that's how we got the lens flare effect. So it looks like there's a very bright light coming from the top left corner. Now, if we blend this to, remember, darken or multiply what we used previously, it won't really work well. But if you go to the screen, it'll basically pass right through the black background and you can see right through it. So you can see basically the stars and the black background blend nicely. So it blends really nice with the darker colors. So for blending the white, you're going to use the multiply, okay, filter, or the darken filter. To get rid of the black background, just use the screen filter for that, okay? Kind of looks interesting, the vivid light. So the screen or lighten works as well. These are the two that work in combination together, one or the other, okay? Screen or lighten for dark backgrounds, darken and multiply for white backgrounds, okay? Let's go back to screen. And that's how these two very popular offset blend modes work together. The last one is called hard light. This is more like an experimental filter. What you have is a layer on top of a background, like this one here. It's got a layer mask built in, which means it's clipped right from the edges. For this one, Using darken or multiply might not be a bad idea. Even lighten and screen, not as effective. But if you do hard light, what it does, it blends a little bit of both. So it's like the mix of the two. It brings all the colors together and it mixes the darks and the light colors and the contrasting colors and everything. So you do have this result effect at the end of the day. Okay. So that's what the hard light blend mode works. Now there's other blend modes you can explore, and they're all good in their own way. But the most popular ones are the ones I just showed you, and the more common ones in terms of applying a method behind the effect or the blend. Okay, so a quick tour on how blend modes work, and hope you find them useful, and I want you to integrate them in your assignment if you see a fit. All right, the next folder is going to be the effects. Okay, so this is how you produce Photoshop effects. This might be good for your social media ad that you're making for this week. Okay, so for this one, you're going to use some effects that are, again, there's the handout here. You can do glows, drop shadows, bevel and emboss. These are, again, the more common ones for applying the effects. It gives you a whole list of things you can do in terms of the example for this handout here. Okay. Let's open this one first. A very popular motion picture and a poster, A Rise of the Planet of the Apes. You do have this as like a text layer that's extracted from an image. Here you have like the shadow filter on top of the planet. And here you have the actual planet itself. So you have all these layers assembling this design. Now, mind you, the shadow and all these other ones, you can control the opacity to better control what this outcome might look like, right? But it tells you here what to do. It's pretty self-explanatory. This one has text drop shadow. So basically, to get the drop shadow to appear behind this text, basically to bring it up a little bit, because it gets a little lost, maybe a little two-dimensional. I'm gonna double click here, okay, or click on the effects here and add what's called, in this case, I'm looking for a drop shadow. You can do bevel and emboss, all the other ones. You can do it this way, or you can just double click here. Now, if you double click here, all you're going to do is rename the layer. So be careful where you click or where you double click. So again, my advice is for you to do it here on this empty region of the layer. If you double click there, this is when you get the wonderful world of layer styles that show up. And here's what we're going to do, what's called a drop shadow. Now, don't just click on this little check mark, because if you do, you're not going to get the settings to show up. So rather than just do that, click on drop shadow. Because if you don't, you just do this, you're not going to get the settings. You have to click on the whole tab. And then you can control things like the distance, like how far you want the shadow to be extended to, the spread, how much shadow do you want to apply. You want to apply the size, okay, and all these other important attributes. Now, I like to keep mine at minimal. So the distance might be like 5, spread is 5, size is 5. 3 5s are all across the board. The angle is 120, and that's a global light. So that means the light's be coming from the top left corner down to the right corner. And global means all the lighting styles that are applied in conjunction with other layers on this document will follow the same rule to use this as a global light. Okay, that's what that means. That means all the shadows will look the same, which makes sense. So without the drop shadow or with the drop shadow, and this is the result you're going to get. All right. And you can see how nicer that looks. It just punches the text a little better. You'll notice something called effects underneath the layer. That also enables you to make it visible or invisible, or each effect individually as well. You can hide it also by clicking on the little effects tab on the far right. This next layer is called Planet Glow. So if you double click on this one here, what's going to happen is you can open up the same thing, the layer styles, and you're going to go here where it says outer glow. When you click on the outer glow, you're going to get just the whole tab highlighted, and you have a different set of settings. Like the drop shadow had more settings adhering to the drop shadow part, the glow is going to have the outer glow settings based on that effect as well. So you can pick things like color. Okay. I'm going to pick this, color here, maybe like a pink or a purple. I can also pick the spread. I can also pick the size. And you can see, to move the window out of the way, you can see some of the effects, or the way the effect is being accumulated over the image like this. Okay. And if you want to change the color, you can always do so as you go ahead here. Now the blend mode set to normal, you can apply a blend mode with the effect as well. So you can go things like screen, you can try maybe multiply. A multiply won't work in this case because it's going to be contrast the effects. So maybe one of the other ones might work a little better. You know, right? Maybe hard light might work well, but I'll keep it normal because sometimes blend modes are not the best way to incorporate with effects or layer styles. But if you see a fit, like in this case, I think maybe the hard light might work. Okay. So it is going to produce a nice, harder, sharper type of glow effect. Opacity obviously controls the opacity meter, how this effect works. And you can really do some cool things like Star Wars and all these other epic movies that you see with, lightsabers and glows and superheroes and stuff. This is quite popular in the movie industry. And if you make posters and other social media ads and other things, this will definitely help you. Okay. So again, this is called the applying the actual effects or layer styles by double clicking on the layer and changing it that way. All right, next one. Just going to close this one down as well. Don't save. These are all examples from these two files here. Sorry, from this one file here that I did. But this other file is called Bevel and Emboss. So if you open this next one, by the way, here's all the examples here and the steps that I'm following. If I double click on that file, it's going to open up this bevel and emboss. It's like a metal texture. You can pick any texture you like. You can produce a wood texture. Basically, this is what it looks like. There's the word steel, and there's the texture in the back. Now, with the new AI integrated methods in the software here, I can produce a different texture right now and do some more text. I want to teach you how to do this from scratch instead of just showing you how the effect works. As far as the handout is concerned, you double click here, you produce a bevel and emboss, and there's the result. And you can then control the depth, you can control the size, you can control how soft the bevel is, you can have it chiseled. You can then do what's called an outer bevel or an inner bevel, or you can do what's called an emboss or pillow emboss, like it's chiseled in, or stroke emboss. Like you can do a lot of different things depending on the effect. You might get a different result, of course. Then if you want to really bring it up, you can do what's called you can do like a satin overlay, like a nice little, shade of color that I'll just overlap it on top, right? And you can move anywhere you like. So this produces a nice type effect, usually for text or other items on top of the images and textures and stuff. But I promise you I'll do this from scratch. So let's just make one right now quickly. I'm going to close this down and let's do this again, all from scratch. I'll create a new file. I'm going to make it 800 pixels wide and 800 pixels. Whoops. So width is 800, height is 800. Why is it not listening to me? Okay, there we go. 72 dpi is the resolution. You can start off even with the web files and then change it if it's easier. Let's try it again. Okay, so go to web, change the web page size to 800 by 800. We don't need artboards. Okay, you just do this without artboards for now. We'll get into artboards next time. It just creates multiple pages like we did in Illustrator. RGB color mode, of course. Unless you're printing stuff, you can switch to CMYK. as I do with my graphic design students. But for us, because here we're to do web production stuff, we're going to do the RGB color. Create button. Here you go. All right. What texture do we want to make? Do we want to make water? Do we want to make gold? Do we want to make earth and stone? Do we want to make any texture? Well, Photoshop's capable to do everything on its own now. Before I have to go to like the internet here and do a Google search and just type in, gold texture. Sometimes, you still have nicer stuff online, you're right, than opposed to you generating something in Photoshop. But let's test the two out. Let's see if we can make something better than this, right? Because sometimes this might be a better way to grab textures than making them from Photoshop, but we'll see. So let's try to prompt this. I'm going to press Command A, means make a selection in Photoshop. And I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Generative Fill. Generative Fill is what AI uses to create, a generative fill for that selection. You might even have an actual contextual taskbar that's located, and you can do it this way, generative fill, which is another way to do that in Photoshop. This is always, sometimes it gets on the way. So what I do is I hide the bar, and then I show the bar when I need it for this. So let's do a generative fill. We're going to type in gold texture, okay? Gold texture. I can be more descriptive with my prompting. I can put gold texture with highlights or with accents. Okay, now let's hit generate. Let's see what happens. Not bad actually, if that's the kind of gold you're looking for. Of course, there's two varieties. You can go with this one or that one. So whatever type of texture you're into, you could get something more smoother or something more rougher, because I did put accents, so it did give me the accents that I'm looking for. All right, now let's see if we can chisel a gold logo popping out from this gold texture. This is very useful because you're not going to get this done from anywhere else except if you do it yourself, right? So maybe we'll do like a nice logo in Illustrator and merge the letters together and then bring it here on top of this gold texture and make it like really pump out. But I'm not going to waste time going to Illustrator back and forth, because you could literally go to Illustrator, copy the design there or the logo like we did last module, and then paste it in here as an object. So you can just type a letter here. Let's just quickly go, even the shape tool we can use here. There's the shape tool. We can pick something that's custom shape tool, right? You can pick a different type of shape if you want. Wild animals, trees, boats, okay, flowers, wild animals. Let's go with there, a little submarine icon, right? So I can basically click and drag the mouse to create this shape, right? Then you can draw something in Illustrator. You can even put some text, right? And now this will be converted into a selection that we're going to extract from the gold. So it's like a chiseled logo or something like that on it. To make that effect, I'm going to hide this bar first because does get on the way. I'm going to hold Command click. If you Command click here on the thumbnail, it's going to produce a selection that's right on top of the image. A really cool little trick. I'll show you again. Command or Control, click here. Not here, here, because then you select this as a selection. Then you hide the selection. You go to the gold texture layer here, and you press Command J or copy and paste. And this will extract the submarine in gold, basically. And then you double click here on the side of the layer, and you do what's called bevel and emboss. We're going to go with the outer bevel. I'm really going to increase the size, softening it up, the depth. Maybe not the best example, but we're trying to show you different things here. We'll do a satin overlay. So this might be inner bevel. I think the inner bevel worked better because it's a little more noticeable now than before. You can then get like stuff looks like it's engraved or chiseled into the texture. In this case, we used gold. Let's see, don't want to use these fancy symbols and stuff. Let's just want to use text. Let's try one of these other textures here, right? I'm going to use the type tool. There's the type tool in Photoshop. But in this case, the type tool, normally you go click and you type whatever you want, right? Lorem ipsum, let's say. This is your text. Or if you click and drag, you drag a text box, okay? And a text box is different in Photoshop. Just like Illustrator, you can treat it like a text box, right? But did you know if you click on this horizontal type mask tool, what it'll do is it'll convert the text into a selection. So if I go to that tool right there, and if I first, you want to make sure you increase your point size because you don't want it too big and too small for you to control it. So I'll go with 72. I'm going to click once and type gold, right? Now, the important thing is when you type this here, you can then control the point size after, more or less, right? To move it, you have to go underneath. Oops, I think I messed that up for a second. If it does, there we go. Oh, I messed that up there. Just press escape, select, deselect, and just do it again if it does mess up on you. Always predefine your size first. It's probably easier. So if you click again and you type gold, right? The trick here is to drag the mouse underneath to move it. So when you move the position, that's where it's going to be. Okay, then you can highlight it and make it even bigger. Let's go with 300. Okay, maybe I'll type in 200. Final answer, right? Again, to move it, you have to go literally very careful underneath like this until you get the move tool. To control the typography is up here. Once you have it, this is what it's going to look like. As soon as you click over here away from it, it'll convert the selection, which then you can see the selection here. You can see the selections right there, right? You can then do copy and paste or Command J to extract that to a separate layer. So now you have the gold writing, separated. Then you can double click and do the bevel and emboss and make it look like realistic gold type of effect that you're looking for. You can do outer bevel, inner bevel. You can do emboss. Many, many cool things you can do with this effect. Okay. All right. And that, my friends, is how you can do this cool stuff with Photoshop, like no other program. I know there's AI filters out there and Firefly and Adobe Max that can do this, but there's nothing like you being in total control of what texture, what font, what type, how much depth of the effect you do. So you have ultimate control in Photoshop doing this stuff. All right. I'm gonna put this one away as well. So that was under this was the effects lesson. Okay, so effects is how you can do different effects. So blend modes and effects are very, very notorious in Photoshop, and you can see why, not just for production use, but also creative use as well. Okay. All right. Now we have layer masks. Layer masks is another layer here where another important aspect of the application where you get to create different things with layer masks. It's an advanced way of controlling selections in Photoshop. This one also has a lot of steps to follow. So you can do all these different steps here to create the actual a layer mask. So layer mask is a way to hide or show parts of an image in a montage. So this lesson is very important, and we're going to cover this one today as well. And then after that, you'll have a better understanding of Photoshop's essential techniques that professionals use pretty much daily. Okay, so layer blends, layer styles, or layer effects, and then this is called layer masks. Okay, Let's start with this one here. It's called Mask and Hide. If I double click, you will see this helicopter that looks like that. You might, I don't know why this is done already. I should upload my file. This is the completed version. Let's reset it back to normal. To go back to normal, I'm going to delete the layer mask that I already did with the last lesson. I guess it just updated my files. I'm going to drag this little thumbnail, this little white thumbnail. I'm going to drag it to the trash can, and I'm just going to have this helicopter look like normal. So let's normalize this effect to show you what it looks like. So it looks like this. And yes, this area is patrolled by aircraft. So if you're caught speeding, not only a cop car pulls you over, but a helicopter. But the way they do it is they hide behind the trees like this, right? So to hide the trees, you have to basically create the illusion or the effect that this is hiding here. In order to do that, we need to create what's called a layer mask. Because if you're going to come here and first of all, you can't delete this. I can't go use a eraser tool and do this because the layer is placed. It's a smart layer, right? Unless you rasterize the layer. Let me show you again. If you rasterize the layer, you can then use the eraser and basically erase the helicopter. But the problem is once you erase the helicopter like that, it's done. You can't really, let's say you open it the next day, it's gone forever. You can't bring it back, basically. Whereas if you're going to do a layer mask, you can always bring it back and forth as many times as you please. So the way to do a layer mask is the right and proper way to do this effect. This is why the lesson is called layer masking. What you want to do is you want to position the aircraft, in this case here, and then you're gonna go to the layer menu and produce layer mask reveal all. You can do hide or reveal, one or the other. It just works with hiding or revealing. I'm going to show you both anyways. I just like to use this one, it's easier. So there's the thumbnail I'm talking about. Once this second thumbnail shows up, that's called the mask. This is the layer, and this is the mask that you just created. Based on the mask, Photoshop uses a brush technique similar to the quick masking we did the other lesson. Remember how we perfected the selections using quick mask? Well, this is called layer mask. It's a little different. So what it does is uses black or white. So if you use make the brush bigger with the squiggly brackets beside the letter P. If you use the black, black will hide. It'll basically apply the mask and hide the image. If you press X, it switches to the white. It brings it back, you see? So you can always bring it back or hide the mask. That's how this is added to the layer. This little thumbnail here on the right, it does a subtractive or an added substance, black or white. So basically, if you keep going with the black and white and get all the details across, you could make this look a little more realistic. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So it looks like the helicopter is really, really coming out. Okay, there we go. All it is just a mask. If you want to make it look, let's say we're told we got to move the helicopter a little more down or up, right? We can always then, let's say we want to do here, this position, we can always go back to the mask layer, go back to the brush, and just press X to bring back those features of the aircraft for another use or purpose, you see. So it's very controlling, very, very flexible in that regard. And this is how layer masks work. The most simplest way I can explain it is something like this as an example, hiding or showing an image for a purpose. Some people go as far as cutting out the trees and pasting them on top to create this effect. No need when you do layer masking. It just makes it that much more easier to create this realistic effects. All right, so let's go to the next one. Put this one away. Okay, we have a picture of this is an old photo, by the way, believe it or not. Although coincidentally, we have Donald Trump winning the presidency again. We do have two thumbnails here. We have a picture of Donald Trump, and we have this mask here. And if you hide it, oh, you have a picture of the Terminator. Um, you can put Arnold Schwarzenegger if you want. I think he's a better candidate for this than Donald Trump. But if you go click on this thumbnail here and you use the brush tool, if you're using the white or the black, you can hide or show um, parts of the actual image like that. Okay, it's a cool effect, and you can produce the same result because in the back of this is a picture of the actual Terminator, the actual robots. Um, just to show you another example of this, let me use another celebrity. I didn't pick these images, by the way. They're just given to me there. So I'm not really picking on Donald Trump or anybody else. I don't really have a political view or opinion because it doesn't matter here in Canada. The U.S. politics is there. It affects us in some way, but let them do their thing. Here, I'll do Arnold Schwarzenegger. So here's the real Terminator, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we're gonna go just to show you how to apply this again. We're gonna go to, I think this one might work. We're gonna right click, copy the image, go over here again. Now watch this. I'm gonna create a new layer. I'm gonna paste it on top like that, and superimpose this, the facial details on top of the overlay of my mask. So here I have a picture of the Terminator, and the trick is to line them up perfectly, right? Now the angle is not as straight, but we can always create the angle differently as well. So how do you line it up? You can reduce the opacity a little bit. I can even use a blend mode, actually. We can use a blend mode like this. Command T. There. I think that'll work. So as long as it blends, uh, almost the same way of the superimposed design, the layer mask should work. Okay, so let's make a layer mask. We go up here, layer mask, reveal all or hide all. You can do either one. If you go down this way, you can produce a layer mask even quicker by clicking on this button, layer mask. So if you click on that button, it'll create a thumbnail here, which then you can use the brush black and white to produce the Terminator effect. All right. It's a little off this one a bit, but with some extra added steps, I'm sure I can get it to work. Right. Anyways, takes some adjusting to do. You get the idea, right? So it's just a matter of using the right images, the right angles to get the effect to work. All right. So special effects, movie effects, transforming humans to robots, all that kind of stuff there. It's all good to go. All right. Next example, we have this is called a blend mode of two different well, the frog and the fish. So you have a reptile to a fish blend. Another special effects thing that they use in, again, movies or other things here. To blend this one to that one perfectly, I'm just going to delete this top layer here. So you have this one on top of that one. So to blend it perfectly, okay, what you want to do is add a layer mask, okay? So same thing again, layer mask, reveal all, same steps. Use a brush tool, so a paintbrush, and you're painting black or white to do the effect. Now, this might not work too bad. You're just using, the trick here is to use a very soft brush. So the hardness is diminished to almost zero, like maybe 10%. The size will be quite increased to like in 100 or so, and that'll produce a nice blend effect. Now, this is not bad because you can see how that works, but I got something better. Okay, so I'm just gonna go and bring it back. Going to bring him back for a second. What works better than using a black and white brush is an actual black and white gradient. So what you do instead of doing this, you add a layer mask, you go right to the gradient tool. And this is a nice way to use a gradient effect. And you're going to use, of course, black to white. The basics should be black to white. And what you do is you grab this and you drag it all the way like that. You see, from left to right. If you go the wrong way, don't worry. You can always go left to right to left, up and down. You can always try different things like we did in Illustrator. I'm going to go from here to there, right? And then I can always move this further this way or that way. I can move the one that's fading out closer this way. And I can really, really get a nice gradual blend between the two. So this is how you can really get a smooth transition. I've done this in advertising for many years when we told a story of maybe like a beautiful forest, and then you have like a forest fire. So before and after, and how consequential these events can be. So nice way to tell a story. They say pictures worth 1,000 words, but doing a transition like this might be worth 2,000 words. Okay. All right. So this is using the layer mask, but in conjunction with the gradient tool, just as powerful and smoother. All right. I'll not save that one either. By the way, all these lessons that I'm showing you are into this effects right here, like the steps and stuff. Okay. This one's the fading I just did with the fish frog. The next one I'm going to do is the sunflowers, which is the fourth one. So this is this one here. It's already done, I know. So we're going to have to just delete it, do it again. So I'm just going to hit delete, right? Delete and delete. Just delete both of those layers. So just stick with the sunflower layer here. Let me just quickly see if somebody has a question here, because I did hear a chime in the background. Any questions so far? Yeah, we're good. All right. So this is a picture of beautiful sunflowers staring into the sun. That's what they're supposed to do anyways. And we're going to do a layer mask to produce an isolated effect. So these are called the adjustment layers. Here you can do lots of cool things with images, like color correct them. Like if you do brightness and contrast, for example, you can increase the brightness or the contrast of the image just to do some basic color corrections. I'm going to press delete. Delete. I don't want any adjustment layers. Levels is another important one where people do use levels to really, really make the images a little brighter and more apparent with certain contrasting values. Now, this image is already good, so you won't see anything else come from it. So I'm going to leave this one alone. But just in general, this is how you adjust all your images to look better. And the most common ones are these two. When you get into exposure and curves, it's a little more advanced. It's more like for photographers that know what kind of numbers they're looking for. Then there's vibrance and other important ones as well, hue and saturation. So these are the four I use most of the time. Now for this specific one, we're going to go what's called channel mixer. And the channel mixer lets you basically convert photos to different channels. In this case, I'm going to use a black and white with yellow filter channel, and that'll give me this black and white kind of replica look. I can increase the reds a bit. I can increase the greens, the blues. These are all the grayscale value channels for what this looks like a bit. And of course, there's the constant, right? This is how you can control these sliders here of this specific gray output channel. Now, because this is an adjustment layer, all adjustment layers have layer masks. The reason is you might want to isolate certain parts of the image not to be affected by this layer mask. In this case, I'm going to click on this layer mask channel. So notice how I didn't have to apply a layer mask. It was already added for me. So all you have to do then is basically click on the layer mask layer, go to the paintbrush tool, and use black instead of white as a foreground color, and go ahead and start isolating those parts out from the image. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. You do this in a lot of advertising where you see the yellow pages and some other ads. You see those colors, only those areas in color. Everything else is grayscale or black and white. Here's another one over here. All right. And that's how you can produce some other additional effects using layer masks, in this case using adjustment layers in conjunction with layer masks to produce certain visible effects. Let's say I don't want this blue to show up here. This blue here, I'm going to press X. bringing back the whites, foreground color, and just take out the blue because maybe I just want the yellow to show up and not the blue. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit here. That's what's good about these masks. You can always edit them here. Notice how the black dots that I have in the mask is the ones that are see-through, and the white is the one that's basically through it. Okay, all right. So this is your crash course with using all these powerful features in the program. And this is a nice comprehensive handout. It covers all the things I demonstrated right now in this video. So you do have the layer masks explanation here. Paint this one blue as well. All right. Now these other ones are miscellaneous, like this content-aware scaling. Really nothing worth noting here. Smart objects. This is an important one because it shows you how objects are when you scale them in Photoshop. Basically, by default, when you go File, Place, Embedded, when you place an image in Photoshop, it becomes automatically a smart object, right? This here is a smart object because it's placed. This one here is rasterized. So what's the difference? Well, rasterized image, you can go, use the magic wand, you click here and you can basically edit the rasterized design like that. You can go, with the eraser tool and start erasing stuff, right? Whereas you can't do that to this one because it's a smart object. So once you do rasterize it, before you can edit it. So if you press OK, now this is also rasterized. So you can't edit unless you want to do layer mask that I just did earlier. Kind of contradicts this theory. But if you do layer masks, you can then edit it in that sense. But if you do delete backgrounds and to do stuff, you have to rasterize the image. So what's the big deal then, right? What's the big deal of having this rasterized or not rasterized? Well, because if it's rasterized, it's more editable, which is good, right? You want to edit it and stuff. But the trick is if you rasterize it, you can't go bring it back to a smart object again without, losing quality, basically, especially if you resize it. But if you keep it as a smart object or you convert it back and forth, it's a strategic way to keep the smart object. So what's the point of having a smart object versus a rasterized layer? Well, let's compare the two. This one is rasterized. This one is a smart object. So pretend I went to File, Place, and I placed both. This one I edited it, so I rasterized it, and this one is a smart object. You can tell by this thumbnail. So there's a benefit of keeping smart objects because they're indestructible. That means if I select both of them and I go Command or Control T and I resize this small like that, press Enter. Then I come back the next day and I'm doing some kind of an Apple montage merchandising design for an e-commerce website. I come back again, I press Command T, I resize them bigger again, I press Enter. I do it again a few times, back and forth. Because people do this, eh? For designers, they make things bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, rotate back and forth, bigger, smaller, right? I'll do it a few times to show you. The more you do it, the worse this one becomes because it's pixelated. Pixels get destroyed over time when you scale them back and forth, right? Right? Whereas if you keep it as a smart object, it doesn't destroy at all. Remember, like Illustrator, it keeps it vector, basically. Although it's not vector, it's still pixels. It keeps it non-destructive because it's protected that way. So the trick is not to rasterize it unless you have to rasterize it. Or even then you can, I'll teach you a trick to preventing this from happening. I'll go to revert to original here. Okay. So let's say you do want to edit this. You want to go with the magic wand and delete the, delete the orange, the red, maybe some editing things you want to do. Right. What you want to do then is right click, and what you want to do is, you could make it convert to smart object. If you do that, if you convert them both to smart objects and you do resize them back and forth, right? Then they're both indestructible. So you knowing to convert the smart object or rasterize it, then convert it back to smart object. It's the advantageous part of you controlling this nonstop, you see? And then if you want to edit it, you right click, you know, you rasterize the layers. So they're not smart objects. But then when you want to scale them and stuff, you know what? Convert them back to smart objects. Now, be careful what I did there. I selected both of them and converted them both into the same layer. So you can do that as well. Okay, so smart objects versus rasterized layers, very important in terms of scalability and utilizing the graphics for many, many purposes. Okay, so be mindful of that. And that's how you would convert smart objects or rasterized layers back and forth. So I figured that was an important little lesson as well to add to the list here. Oh, no, not wasn't that one. Content aware scaling. We did that already in the other example. This is repetitive, so I'm not going to do it there. Image size. This is important so you can know how image sizing works in Photoshop. As you know, Illustrator, we didn't care about image size because we're dealing with vector shapes. You were making logos and typography and vector files basically that are indestructible. This is different because you're dealing with images. Okay, so basically, here's the two images. This is high res. This is low res. How do I know? Because one's a lot smaller than the other, right? So I open both up side by side. I'm just going to open them both in Photoshop. You can see how they look. So this is the Snow Branch low res. This is the Snow Branch high res. One is definitely bigger than the other. And this one's at 50%, I can tell. This one's at 100%. If I bring this to 100% by zooming in, now this is the actual 100% of this image. Look how sharper this is. Whereas if I was to zoom in this one here, and obviously it looks very, very pixelated, very poorly done this way. So the difference is immense, okay? You can see here. So the thing here, the takeaway is to keep the images at high res at all costs. The more the better. So if you go to image size, you can see how this one is 400 pixels at 30 pixels per inch. This is why you want to keep the resolution at 72. If you print stuff, we keep it higher, 150, 200, 300 dots per inch, because there's more resolution concentrated per that pixel, okay? So that's why this one is bad, because the resolution was bad to begin with. When you search images online, make sure you don't get 30 resolution. At least 72 is what you want. This one, on the other hand, if you go to image size, you see here it's 300 dots per inch. Look, it's 4K, 4,000 pixels. That's like 4K quality almost, right? That's what 4,000 is. Okay, so the more pixels, the more quality you get from the images, especially when you get stuff online and you're searching for sources and stuff. So be mindful of resolution. More pixels per inch, the better the resolution. All right, now this is an all-out good review lesson here. Just to wrap this up quickly, it's called layers. This is pretty much all in one. Teaches you all the things I demonstrated right now and more. And it goes over the Photoshop fundamental / intermediate methodology part of the software. So if you look at these things here, this is the stuff you can learn. This I used to give this as like a hands-on test or quiz to my students. If you want Wednesday, we can go over this again if you don't get it. But Wednesday, I want to start the web page design stuff. So that's why I'm gonna compress my classes with you. Even in our lab work days, like Wednesdays, I'll do lessons because I want to make sure we're on top of our game. Because when I'm away next week, I don't want to compromise anything in case I do not show up on the online stuff. My Wi-Fi doesn't work, whatever. I'm not going to be able to be accessible that way. So I'm going to cover all my stuff earlier so we're ahead of the game, okay? So Wednesday, we'll do a class for the website as well. Now, to cover all this here, we'll try to do it today. It's basically, here's what it does. It starts a document, merges documents, scaling documents, blending, masking, effects, clipping we haven't covered. It's a good little part of Photoshop as well. And saving the document. So all these wonderful things in one exercise. Okay. So to start this, Basically, this is the starting document. It's called Start PSD. And this is basically Facebook conversion for the ad. We did a little design here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this file and we can start this exercise. I'm going to double click here. Always maximize your layer space. So if you follow the handouts, it'll tell you step by step what to do. Merge documents. Open the tree, select the move tool, drag the tree from one document and move it to the other basically. So if I double click on the tree, I simply open it this way. Keep in mind you have two documents open. How do you merge documents? You can drag down like this, right? You can use the move tool and you can move this over to that. Okay. Now, if you do that, you're going to lose the window. Okay. So make sure you put it back or just close it. Okay. And you can move the tree to the right spot. You can then press Command or Control T and resize the tree to the right size specs that you want to. Another way to move the tree is, let's say you don't want to pull tabs out. You drag it this way to this tab. You hold the mouse, you go all the way back down again, then you let go. Then there's the tree. That's another way to put the tree from here to there. Drag and drop, okay? Okay, next thing. What's the next thing here? Let me open this up, actually, so we don't just look at it. Open the balloon, the magic eraser, another great way to delete backgrounds. Click on the blue sky and drag the balloon over to the document. So scaling, so merging documents is what I demonstrated just earlier. Now I'm going to perform what's called scaling. So scaling is when you have the balloon. Here it is. Double click. Oops. Double open it with Photoshop actually. So double clicking on it. I want to get rid of this background, so you can go use as the handout says, we're going to use the magic eraser tool. So what that does is if you click on the background, it just deletes the background. My tolerance was set to 5. You should have 32, so it should work fine. There we go. Okay. So once it's gone, you can then use the move tool. Same thing, drag, drop, document, drag again, let go. And then Command T, scale, Shift select, and do this, right? That's how you scale the document. Another way to do this that I want to show you, okay, that we've learned in the past. I'm just going to press undo. Watch this method. Magic wand, ready? Click on the background. What's selected? The background. I want to do what's called select inverse, which means select the opposite of the background, which is the balloon. Then I hit Command C, which is copy. I go over to the other document. I click on the move tool. I press Command V, paste. And then I press Command or Control T to resize the balloon. And here's my other variation of the balloon as well. Now there's 2 balloons. Okay. Now this is for you to do on your own. So like I said, I'll do it with the video here that I'm recording, but I want you to try this at home, please. This is a must-do exercise. You don't have to hand it in. I want you to focus on the assignment that's due on Friday, but I do trust that you're going to do this and do it at your own, good measure. Blend. So this is like twirl down the triangle in the layers folder, turn the visibility, and soft light, color me, overlay. These are all different blend modes that I'm going to execute right now on the example. So if I go back to Photoshop, you can see, like, look for this. Look, blend modes. There they are right there. See, this covers all the blend modes. What the heck are the balloons doing here? I'm going to move the balloons maybe away from there. I'm just going to move them away somewhere there. Okay, so this has soft. See how it's dark here? Soft light. So I'm going to go over here. Soft light me. Soft light me means go up here and make it a soft light. Okay, so instead of normal, we're gonna go make it a soft light. This one, it's a yellow filter. It's like a yellow fill that they added, like maybe a brush or something. It says color me. So I'm gonna go here and go to color. And this brings up the brightness of the green to a nice bright amount because the yellow with the green makes it look more neutral. And this has an overlay effect. So if I make this visible again, it says overlay. So you can see how it looks all reddish. So I'm going to do what's called overlay to give it that drastic, nice, colorful result. So all these three different things I just added made the layer blends work quite nicely to execute this result. Okay, so that's what blend mode did. Now let's move over to masking, something I covered earlier. Turn the visibility of the gauge layer on, reorder the layer, add a layer mask, select the brush tool. So basically work with the gauge. That's what it's telling me to do. So I'm going to go to the, where's the gauge here? Oh, there it is, gauge, mask. So I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask by clicking here or go to layer mask, reveal all. Making this visible, by the way. I should put this, reorder layer. So make sure to move it up. It says reorder layers. Very good. Let's move it over here. Okay, it looks a little awkward. So I'm going to go to the layer mask layer or just make a layer mask and use the brush tool and use the black to take away parts of this layer that we don't want to show like that. Okay, so that's layer masking. Nice and easy mask. Effects. Scroll down the triangle in the text folder, select the text layer, and use a drop shadow, outer glow, bevel, emboss. Just something we did earlier today. Let's go ahead and use the text. There they are. Let's put these in a folder as well. So I'll just press Command G. Okay. Call this balloons and tree. All right, go to 50% opacity. That's what this says. So let's go ahead and do that with 50% opacity so you can see right through it. You can just type in even 50% opacity. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but it also captures everything in a nutshell. All the important intermediate methods we just use in Photoshop, it demonstrates them all in this one exercise. So it's a good practice, a good review. So let's open up this text layer. It says, so this one is, I guess we can do, I'll do it on both. We'll just double click on the whole group here. We'll do a drop shadow, and I'll do bevel and emboss. Okay, so there it is right there. I'm gonna go maybe not as deep, maybe nice and soft. Press OK. Now this is applied on everything that's in that layer. Okay. If I don't want it to be on that one, I would have just went inside and only did it on that text layer only, as opposed to the whole group. So the choice is yours. You can do either or. Then maybe we can just move it over a bit to the left. Move the whole. Be careful when auto select group or layer. In this case, I'll select the group and move the whole group as in entirely. Maybe I can make it a little bigger as well. Okay, maybe this also can be a little moved over here. And the gauge can also move over here. So it can move everything over like that. So this was using some of the effects. Oh, I missed the outer glow. So I can always go back, go to my text layer, double click, and let's add what's called outer glow. So it'll glow the text a little bit that way. Maybe a little too much if you ask me, but sure, we'll go with that one. Let's match the color to the nice yellow that we have in the gold here. So we can just simply sample the color using this eyedropper tool as we clicked on the color of the outer glow. Okay. What else we got here? Clipping. Turn the visibility of the clip me down layer on the select layer, create clipping mask. So simply there's and then the layers here, there's something called clip me down. So there's texture and there's what's called a Harris hawk. So yeah, there's a hawk in here. Just show you the hawk here. There's, whoops. I should change this back to auto select a layer. I'm going to move the Harris hawk here. This keeps disrupting my move here. So I'm going to grab these layer blend modes. I'm going to lock them. When I lock them, that means I can't accidentally select them. You see, now I can select the hawk with no problems. I'm going to move the hawk a little this way. Maybe I'll move the balloons a bit to different locations. There we go. So the hawk is here, flying nicely in the sky. This is a texture. So if I make this visible, it's hiding the hawk. Clip me down means if you hold Option and you click between the two layers, it'll basically put the texture inside that clipping. So just a visual effect that you can do. I'll cover this more in detail with the website design on Wednesday, so you'll see how these clippings work quite nicely. Just a quick introduction. Option drag works. You know what else works? You can actually, I think, right click and do what's called a create clipping mask. Create clipping mask works too. Option click, just like we did in Illustrator, if you remember, with images and objects. All right, lastly, let's save this file here. It says flatten it and make it a TIFF. For web, we'll make it a JPEG or something else, so it goes with the web compliance formats. First, we save it as a Photoshop file, so we save as a, or just save as, and you can choose, look, to save this as the way you can edit it anytime you wish, you have to save a Photoshop document. This way, it'll keep all the layers, everything intact, okay? To save this for social media, let's say this was a social media ad, we want to put this on Facebook or Instagram or something, we have to save a copy and produce a format that works. In this case, we'll do JPEG. I know the handle says TIFF. That's probably more like print production. For web production, we'll do a JPEG. And this now can go on a website, or you can put this as your creative design. So I'm going to hit save, and this will be, I don't know, you can go 10 or 12. Either one is good. I wouldn't go less, then you're compromising quality. Hit the OK button, and that's how you can save this or output it for web design. All right, so that was the last little part of this entire, I know it was a lengthy class today, but I had to cover a lot of material. And this was the final one called layers. I'll mark this red. This is the most important one. So the takeaway here is we did blend modes, we did layer effects, we did layer masks. We also exemplified smart objects versus rasterized layers and pixels. We also talked about image sizing, and we basically concluded all this with an overall exercise called layers. There's all the handouts here that you have to follow to do this on your own. This is what we finished with. I think I got an image online there, right? But it's a different example. This is what we did today in this class. Alrighty, so I hope you had fun and learned a lot with this particular lesson, a very important lesson. So please make sure you follow all these different steps. And I'll see you on Wednesday in the classroom. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of lessons in the beginning, then relax a little at the end to give you some time to catch up on all these assignments and projects. So that'll wrap up the lesson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye for now. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.